FDs which are inferred from the given set of FDs. So that job is of course a countless job. Means okay, from the inferred FDs again we can find out for a few more FDs. So if there is a set of 6 on 7 FDs given, we can infer nearly 30-35 FDs. So we'll not generally go for that, but when you are asked to find out F plus, that is a FD closure, we will generally find out the inferred FDs which can be directly inferred from the given FD set. Okay, we will not further go on inferring the or predicting the FDs like from this set of F plus we are not going to find out the FD. So because that will be a lengthy process. Instead of that, we are going to find out attribute closure. So there are two things. One is the three things rather. One is a set of FD. Okay, there is a set of FD which is a very prominent one, which will be generally given. Like here it is given. And secondly, a closure set of that FD means we are going to find out a closure of that set, whole set. Okay, we will take a whole set into consideration. And third thing is the attribute closure. Attribute closure means in this example we have E is equal to PQRSTU. So PQRSTU are the attributes, and we are going to find out which other attributes can be inferred from each of these attributes. Like in this case I can say that P is going to infer Q, P is going to infer R, Q and R are going to infer S. So that way we are finding out, like here Q is inferring T. So if I am saying that which attributes I can find with the help of P, then I can say I can find out Q, I can find out R, I can find out U, okay, which are apparent. Okay, P, Q and R can be directly inferred or directly determined by P. So Q, R and U are the attribute closure for attribute P. Okay, attribute closure for attribute P. That is the way we are finding out attribute closure for one attribute or for a set of attributes also. Like set of attribute is like QR. So QR का attribute closure क्या हो गया? S and U. So this way we can find out. So what is the process of or what is the not process exactly? We'll see what is the logic behind finding out that we are going to discuss today, and followed by what is the need of normalization. So let us say that this is our example, and I am taking a little simpler one as compared to the previous one. This is a set of FD which is given for us. This is a set of FD which is given to you. So with the help of inference rules or Armstrong axioms, we can very easily say that when P determines Q and Q is determining R, P can determine R. Okay, and P determining Q, Q determining R determining S, so P can also determine S. So this way it is possible. Okay, so there can be, if I am listing out, there will be number of FDs which are possible. Like P is determining R, P is determining S, P is determining T, P is determining U, and so on. And similarly, Q is now determining S, Q is determining T, Q is determining U. So yes, there is a endless creation of all these things. So we'll better make it at a smaller range. Let us say that what I can say, if I am trying to find out a closure of P, it will be denoted as P plus. Okay, a superscript will be there for plus. So there will be a set of attributes P plus. What will be P plus? Or what will be X plus for that case? This X is any attribute in the relation R. X plus will be the set of attributes from the same relation which can be determined with the help of P. Maybe directly or maybe inferred in an inferred way. Okay, so P plus. What can be determined with the help of P plus with the set of FDs? I can say that yes, P is the first attribute which can be determined with the help of P, because I know a value of P, so P can be determined with the help of P. This FD says Q can also be determined with the help of P. Okay. Now what next? I am going to further list out all the elements which can be inferred with the help of P and with the help of Q. So what else is there which can be inferred with P right now? No. But I have Q. Q can infer R. R can infer S. S can infer T. And T can infer U. U cannot infer anything. So now P, Q, R, S, T and U are the attribute closure for attribute P. Okay, this is a simple transitive rule. This is a rule of transitivity we are mentioning. So P can determine all the attributes which are present in this. Now if I say closure of R, closure of R. So of course closure of R means R can be determined with R. The trivial dependency, what we said. The key can determine itself. So R can determine S. S in turn can determine T, and T in turn can determine U. So this will be the attribute closure for R, that is R plus. This for every attribute I can do, P, Q, R, S, T, U. For every attribute you can do. For U, what will be the attribute closure? Only U, because U cannot further determine anything as given in the FD. As given in the FD. Rather, even if you are applying Armstrong axioms in this case, it will be same. You won't be able to determine anything. Okay. Let us say that now P Q plus means whole plus. PQ, I am considering a set of attributes rather than a single attribute. When I say PQ, PQ can determine P, PQ can determine Q. Okay, the trivial dependency. Trivial dependency. In this case, now PQ, now P cannot determine anything else, but Q can determine R. So R will also appear here. R can determine S. S will appear here. T will appear here. U will also appear here. Okay. इसका मतलब क्या है? What we are thinking of? Attribute closure में जो elements आते जाएंगे, that can also determine something. And if they are determining something, that will also be the part of that attribute closure. Okay. Like here, P and Q are further determining R, S, T, U. So Q is determining R, in turn R is determining S. So whatever comes in this set are determining something will also appear. Let us go for one more P R plus. So what P can determine? PR can determine. PR can determine P and R, the trivial dependence. Now what all P can determine? P can determine Q. Okay. Q can determine P can determine Q, no further element. R can determine S. Q can determine R, which is already listed. S can determine T, and T can determine U. So again, PR plus is also possible. PR plus is also determining all the other elements. One more example we'll take. Let us say that RS plus. RS plus is going to find out R, find out S, and then now R can determine S, which is already listed. S can determine T, and T can determine U. So this will be a closure of R plus. Now, why we are doing all these things? Why we are finding out the closure of every combination of these attributes? There are a number of combinations possible. With keeping Q as constant, Q, R, S, T, U can be changed, and we can get number of combinations possible. We can get number of combinations possible. Like if I am saying that P is able to determine all the attributes, anything connected with P will be able to determine all the attributes. It may be PQ, PR, PS, PT, PU. Anything you take, and it will be able to determine everything. Okay, so this way we can list out many things or many attribute sets which will be able to do our job. But what for you are doing this? Now, when if you remember that if the concept of super key, when attribute closure is able to address or infer all the attributes in the relation, when an attribute closure is able to infer all the attributes in that given relation, that becomes a super key for that relation. Are you understanding me? So set of attributes whose closure contains all attributes of the given relation is a super key. So in this, what are the super keys? P plus, because it is addressing all. R plus is not a super key. U plus is not a super key. PQ plus is a super key. PR plus is a super key. RS plus is not a super key. Are you understanding? So this way I can find out the super keys which may be imposed on this given relation. There can be several combinations possible. Okay. Rather, if it is P plus 5 relations, it may be 2 raised to power 5 combinations which are possible in this case. Around 32 combinations will be possible for super key only. Okay. Again, I'll take one more example is P R S plus whole plus. This is also one of the combinations possible. Okay. So it is going to infer P, it is going to infer R, it is going to infer S. So P is going to infer Q, Q is going to infer R, which is already there, R is going to infer S, which is already there, S is going to infer T, and T is going to infer U. So this also contains all the attributes from E. So this will also be a primary. This will also be a super key. So in this way, if I am just considering P as constant, because that is the only attribute, which is able to address all the other attributes. Okay, Q, R, S, T, U can be addressed by P. It is possible. So I am taking Q as constant and just finding out the combinations of Q to R. So it will be 2 raised to power 5. Okay, so nearly 32 combinations are possible with this, like PRS, PST, PTU, U, that kind of combinations I'm talking about. Okay, so two numbers, three numbers, four numbers, even it is possible to have a combination of P, Q, S, U. It is also possible. This can be a super key, but every time P has to be there. If P is not there, let us say that we are taking it as Q, S, U. Q S U का क्लोजर निकालने की कोशिश करते हैं तो what will happen? It is going to give you Q, S, U. Q can infer R, S R can infer S, which is already there. S can infer T, and T can infer U, which is already there. So QSU, if it is a key or set of attributes, it is not addressing all the elements in E. That's why it cannot be a super key. This will not be a super key. So every time P will play an important role because that is the only attribute, only single attribute which is addressing all the elements. Okay. So why we are finding out the attribute closure? So that we will be able to get the super key which can be acted or which can act on this particular relation. Okay, and when we have a list of super keys, we can find out the candidate keys. What is a candidate key? A super key whose proper subset is not a super key. Super key whose proper subset is not a super key. So in that case, whatever previous lecture we have seen, that you can refer. So this way, we can find out the super keys with the help of attribute closure, and we can find out various inferred FDs which may hold or which may exist on the given relation with the help of closure set. So there are two things: attribute closure and your attribute closure and closure set. So these are the two things you need to keep in mind when we go for a purpose of normalization. Okay. Is it clear or anything to be asked in this particular aspect? If not, then we can proceed for next. Is it okay or shall I proceed or shall I repeat? I'm waiting for it's okay. Who answered? So I hope one yes is yes for all, and if not, you can definitely raise the question or ask. Now, taking all these things in consideration, means what is a relation, how the attributes and tuples are written, how the domain types of attribute is defined, then how two relations are connected to each other, what are the functional dependencies, means how some attributes of a relation are uh, dependent on some prime attributes. Okay, that all things we have seen with some examples and all. Okay, that leads us to the discussion of normalization. Okay, normalization is uh, a process of bringing the database into a normal form. It's such a simple definition, but even though the definition is simple, it is not that easy because it's a design process. See, we are into a design process, we are into a thinking liberty. In this case also, yes, as I said, number of combinations of attributes can be taken, and we just try to find out the super key. Any of the super key will act as a primary key probably, and the candidate key and can act as a primary key for a set of attributes or for a given relation. In that case, this relation is actually totally governed by those prime attributes. And if it is not possible to govern that complete relation, govern means, what do you mean by governing a relation? That means with the help of that primary key, I can access each and every element in that relation. So if it is not possible, at that moment we need to redesign that relation. So we are into design process. There is no particular software or there is no particular given concise algorithm which will help you to normalize a database, or which will help you to design a good database. What do you mean by a database? Database is a set of interrelated entity sets, and also the association among those entity sets. So it is our liberty to find out the entities in that given scenario, as we did in the practical, and it's our understanding which associates two relations, two or three relations together. For that purpose, we need to have attributes properly defined, we need to have key properly defined, we need to have functional dependencies properly defined, and then only we'll be able to associate two relations, and as a whole we'll be able to design a system. Okay, because if you are going to a layman, he will be just giving you the simple things that yes, I want this kind of output, or what is this is I have, you please simplify this process. So you don't know at what kind of requirement you are going to get from the client. You are learning SCPM, you better understand that how the requirement is collected, how the feasibility study is done, and then how we are formulating the thing to design a software. It's the same case in case of DBMS. Okay, database management system doesn't alone is a definition of database, but it also provides you the program or set of programs which will be able to manage that data set. Okay, so normalization is a design process. Normalization means bringing the database into a normal form. Normal form means in a good design. In a good design means it should be accessible, and as well as it should be accessible, it should be updatable, it should be maintainable, and it should be rather easy to understand. So these all things we need to do when I'm trying to talk about normalizations. Means I need to design a table such that there will be no confusion while accessing anything, or rather modifying anything. When I insert something, there should be no confusion. When I try to delete something, there should be no confusion. When I want to update something, there should be no confusion. These confusions are called as anomalies in terms of DBMS. It is called as insertion anomaly, deletion anomaly, updation anomaly. So it should not be there. That's what our motive behind normalizing a database. So it is very important to understand the need of normalizations. Then only the process of normalization will become easy for you. So that we'll see what is the need of normalization. What you will be getting is this. Customer will say that, okay, this is the order form I generally generate, and now prepare a database for this. Okay, now I need to find out what are the possible tables which are needed. Do I need to go for a single table or different tables, like order number, customer name, customer address, city, country, and date? So there is a possibility that one customer may take a number of orders. We will give number of orders. So shall I have a single table of having order, which customer has given that, where does that customer stays, what is the product he has ordered, what is the description of that product, quantity of that product, unit price of that product? Is it okay to put all these things in a single table, or we need to go for different tables? This should be our understanding. Okay, so what you are going to get from a customer is this. You need to understand this, and you need to decide whether you want to go for number of different tables. What should be the structure of that tables? How those tables are going to interact with each other? Okay, here I can understand that one customer can place order repetitively. आज एक order देगा, वो 4 दिन बाद दूसरा देगा, उसके 3 दिन बाद दूसरा देगा. So shall I include all the customer details every time in the order form? Is it advisable? Or I should maintain customer data separately and order data separately and product data separately? So all these things we need to take care. All these things we need to take care. So you may get this kind of structure if I'm talking about a layman who will be giving you some information. Or sometimes you may get this kind of information. Okay, where we are given a table. It's a table which is quite readable. Which is quite readable. I can say that what courses roll number 100 is doing. What courses roll number 100 is doing. Is it readable? Yes, definitely. Roll number 100 is appearing here. Roll number 100 is appearing here. So I can say that roll number 100 is doing a course C1, which is of Visual Basic, and ABC, teacher ABC is teaching him. Okay, his name is A1. He is using system P1 for Visual Basic, and the hourly rate of Visual Basic is 20. Total hours is 7. So it is readable for me, but is it readable for the uh, person, for the computer? Okay, like here, C1 is appearing only once. Visual Basic is appearing. These are the common things for all these people. All these rows, these are the common things. Okay, these are the common things. But and see, these this row is going to appear for all, should appear for all, because the computer can read only one row at a time. So it is going to read the first line. It is going to read the first line. It is going to get the complete information. But as soon as it is trying to access the second line, it will find these three things blank, and these four things are added. So it is not able to really relate the student 101 with any course. We can relate it, we can see it. As it is blank, then we'll understand that it is assumed that the same things are there. But computer cannot assume anything. It must be told everything. Okay. So similarly, what's happening here is every time a student is taking a course, 100, 101, 102, 103, all four are learning the same course. So I'll have to repeat the information with everyone. I'll have to repeat the information with everyone. Every time 100, roll number 100 is using P1 machine, but every time I'll have to add the information for that. Okay. In this case, what are the FDs exist? Course code can determine course name, and course code can also determine teacher name. Course code can also determine total hours. And what is the, it may be hourly rate for teacher, or it may be hourly rate for the course. System used has nothing to do with the course code at all. So there will be a lot of confusion in this table when it will be put for processing in a computer system. Okay. So this cannot be a proper table. This is an unnormalized table. Or one more case you can get. Okay, we'll go for all the values filled. We'll go for all the values filled. This is a little different example. I'm giving you different examples so that you can understand. Yes, these are the possibilities in which we are going to determine the things. So we have project code, project name, project manager, project budget, employee number, employee name, department number, department name, hourly rate, everything. Everything mentioned in the same thing. So employee number S0, S100, whose name is Mohan. Okay, Mohan's department is D03, its department name is, and his hourly rate is 2100. Okay, Mohan is working on the project PC010, that is reservation system, which is handled by Mr. Ajay, and this is the budget of it. Okay, now S101 Vipul is also working on the same project, but he is from different department. Riaz is also from different department. He is working on the same project. So what's happening here in this case is, for all Mohan, Vipul and Riaz, I need to for Mohan, I need, for all these three people I need to repeat the information about project, complete information about project. Okay, same is happening in the latter cases. For here it is repeating thrice, this is also repeating thrice. This is called as redundancy of the database. Redundancy of the data. It is getting repeated, and unnecessarily it is getting repeated. Okay, so first is we are facing a problem of redundancy. Second thing is, if in case Mohan leaves the department or leaves the job, Mohan leaves the job. At that time, I am going to delete the entire thing. I am going to delete the entire row. So in this case, the information about department may also get vanished. Okay, it may get vanished. So that will be a problem for us. Even though employee leaves, the department will exist. So I cannot delete the department. Or even when I try to insert a new element, again I'll have to repeat everything. So instead of that, can I have project information separately, employee information separately, and department information separately? So project information will contain project code, project name, project manager, and project budget. We will have department information as department number and department name. Employee information as employee number, employee name, and hourly rate. This we can have. We can have separately, and we can have relationship among them, that when employee number and project code only can be association among the two. When I need to access the details of employee, I'll go to the employee table. When I need to access the details of project, I'll go to the project table. So this way, I can manage this anomalies or avoid those anomalies. This is the need of normalization. Is normalizing this database is important so that it will be easily readable, accessible, and won't be redundant. This is how we are working on a normalization process. So normalization is a process of designing the data or bringing the database into a proper form, which will not have insertion anomaly, deletion anomaly, and updation anomaly. Is a formal definition. Simple definition is bringing the database into a normal form. What do you mean by normal form? My database must be accessible very easily, understandable easily, and updatable easily. That's why that's what my need is. So while designing this, we may have to decompose this whole table into smaller tables. We'll have to define the functional dependency of every table. We'll have to define the association among them. Then we'll have to find out the FDs are valid or not. If they are not valid, there may be some cases where, let us say that one person is having two children. One person is having two children, both are daughters. In that case, if I'm maintaining that employee information along with its dependent, how many dependents a person is going to have? Maybe 2 or 3. So person X is having dependent A, B, and C. So every time, who is a dependent of X? It will be A will be true, B will be true, C will also be true. So sometimes unavoidably, we may get two values for the single output. You may have two phone numbers, both informations are correct. Likewise, okay, so that thing also we'll have to manage. So there are 7 different forms of normalization which we are going to learn, which we are going to gradually define from 1, 2, 3. So first NF to second NF, third NF, fourth, fifth, and sixth, along with one additional form which is called as BCNF. So 7 total forms we are going to learn as far as normalization process is concerned, and uh, that we are going to see as an example, and we'll along with that we'll go for the formal definition of normalization. Okay, so this we'll discuss in the next lecture. I'll stop here today. This is all from my side today. If you have any doubts, you can ask or you can leave. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.